Some of the most ancient legends from around the world center on stories involving the myth of dog-like humanoids, terrorizing small towns and devouring livestock in a few bites. From ancient legends surrounding that of wolfmen to the more recent myths surrounding strange cases of werewolves, there has never been a shortage of witness accounts and stories surrounding what can only be described as the werewolf species. For years, people have been reporting these mysterious humanoids, and interestingly, many of these accounts tend to share a lot in common. Many of these werewolf creatures have been reported from across the world, but after studying these accounts, researchers were able to single out locations where these creatures are reported the most. Werewolves are able to physically morph back into humans, and is said to be the result of a mutant combination of human and wolf. One photograph that makes the rounds every so often is this one. It's said to show a werewolf that succumbed to some kind of injury. The picture was captured by hikers and fishermen who weren't sure of what the creature was. As they went back for a closer look, they could tell it was no longer alive. It's reported that one of the men poked the animal with their fishing rod, but they got no response. After this, they uploaded the images of the creature to the internet, where various people gave their opinions on what they thought the creature could be. Interestingly, although many people were skeptical, others couldn't work out what this animal was. One individual said the following: "Based on the body and teeth, it's a large cat, most probably a mountain lion or a bobcat. The body looks just like a shaved cat that's about to undergo surgery, and the teeth, especially the canines, come in more at an angle." Another user went on to say the following: "By the fur colour, it's a werewolf. Bears do not have grey fur, they have brown. Bears don't have teeth like this. They're too sharp, and werewolf's teeth are slightly more yellow than that. The long neck and muscles, including its biceps, proves it's a werewolf." While another person backed up this claim by saying the following: "I've been studying this topic for years, and I believe that what these people discovered was in fact a genuine werewolf. For some time now, these bodies have been discovered in various places across our planet, but every time they get tested or more information needs to be collected, they mysteriously vanish, never to be seen again. I think that's what we're seeing here. Some have said that it's just a bear who's been in the river for some time, but I disagree. The teeth are more werewolf-like. Although the jaw and teeth do look similar to a mountain cat, this can be ruled out by the muscle definition and neck. Others, however, disagree with this idea, and say that this creature is a bear or a mountain cat. As of right now, there's not much information on this photograph. Interestingly, there's been stories of werewolves that have been passed down over the years. Perhaps one of the most famous ones is that of Hans the Werewolf. Known as the legend of Hans the Werewolf, one of the strangest trials to ever have taken place in the country of Estonia, centered around the prevalent werewolf and witchcraft trials of 1651. According to a number of key Estonian documents, there was an increase in werewolf attacks that ravaged villages all across the country, and led to actual witch hunts, werewolf trials and claims that would be used as political agendas to take some of the assets of others, and gain power via false information of political opponents. Though it's widely accepted that many involved in these trials were those of innocent people, as reported, werewolf attacks continued following their trials and sentencing. One case that stands out the most for evidence of true werewolf involvement is known as the case of Hans the Werewolf. Only 18 years old, a young man by the name of Hans was known throughout his town as a hermit, of whom lived a sad and lonely life. Many historians believe that it was perhaps due to this isolation that he was made a prime suspect in a recent werewolf attack. Authorities in the region eventually tracked him down, forcing him into a trial and investigation he'd not been aware of the slightest. After entering the trial, it became apparent that the judge responsible for the trial was not interested in pursuing the case, and believed it to be nothing more than a case of mass hysteria for those performing the werewolf investigations. The judge would then provide Hans a countless number of instances to admit his innocence to allow him to go free. first opening the court by asking Hans the direct question if he was a werewolf. Without any provocation or intimidation, Hans admitted to being a werewolf with no hesitation, even going as far as claiming that he'd been bitten by a werewolf man 2 years prior and became infected by the curse. In an effort to save the young man's life, the judge asked him if Hans still felt like a man, to which Hans immediately replied that he felt like a wild beast. With one last attempt to save Hans' life, the judge then asked Hans if there was a physical transformation or if this was all in his head, and that this was nothing more than a case of personal insanity. Hans replied to the court that he had evidence of being a werewolf, and showed several large scars from previous claims of defensive strikes the townspeople had made against the werewolf, claiming that he had received them as a werewolf and that the scars stayed in his human form. Shortly after, the trial was finished and Hans was sentenced to death. In recent years, many interesting discoveries have been made in and around Antarctica. It's tough to even visit this hostile location. Researchers have found that journeying anywhere across the continent proves to be a life-threatening and nearly impossible journey, as the blowing winds, dry air, large deserts and constant ice quakes make any form of safe passage an impossibility. Research bases constructed across the icy continent must also be able to stay mobile, as the build-up of ice would swallow buildings. Despite this, many have questioned what's really going down in Antarctica. For many years now, people have said they've discovered strange-looking artifacts buried within the snow, but this recent discovery is said to be one of the best ones made in recent years. The discovery shows over 50 objects, with some saying that they can see tire tracks or skid marks leading up to the objects. Theories for what they are have ranged from secret government crafts to things like crash UFOs and even monoliths. Someone just sent me this video. As you can see, this isn't just an odd artifact in the snow. Whatever these things are, they seem to be quite large, and as some amateur researchers have pointed out, they've only just turned up. Those who have zoomed in to get a better look at the objects have said that some of them even look like monoliths. This then led some to theorize whether they could be linked to the strange monoliths that were being found a few months back, with others saying that whatever these things are, they must be big because they're giving off large shadows. These things are not small. The largest row of objects measures in at just over 870 meters. So the question is, what are these things? Due to them only recently being discovered, it's not likely we'll get an answer. Also, as some have pointed out, when these types of discoveries are made in Antarctica, we never get an answer for what's found. Most skeptics say that what people have found are things like snow and ice, and that these have likely fallen off nearby mountains. Strangely, there's no mountain areas close to these objects, so it seems unlikely that these are pieces of snow or ice that have fallen off. These photographs have already started to be shared on social media, with people giving their opinions on what they think they are. One person said the following: "This has to be one of the best anomalies that's been discovered in Antarctica. What I find odd is that when you zoom in on each of the lines, all of the objects are the same. In one row it looks like there's all monoliths, in the next row it looks like they could be tanks, then in the final row it looks like these could also be military vehicles. Something to note though is that these haven't been here very long, so it's unlikely anyone will be able to give us an answer for what they are." End quote. Researchers who search Antarctica have said that these relics could be evidence of a past ancient civilization, and one of the reasons why we haven't seen them before is because they were buried beneath the ice. This has caused researchers to say that if this is the case, then there's no way they were created by modern humans, but rather an advanced race yet to be discovered. Further saying that if this is the case, then there's more artifacts waiting to be found. Amateur researchers have also said that if you spend long enough looking around the deep crevices in Antarctica, you'll likely find evidence of what appears to be unidentified flying objects. Now it's important to note that scientists and researchers have said that what people are seeing is just ice, and in some cases pareidolia. But those who have spent countless hours looking into these reports have said this isn't what's being seen. Taking a look at these strange structures, these researchers have said it's fairly obvious that they hold many characteristics with sightings of commonly reported unidentified flying objects. Could this discovery be proof that going back many years ago a much more powerful advanced civilization, with the means of producing such megalithic structures, could have inhabited the region long before humans even reached here? An interesting fact to take into consideration is the history of the region. What many people do not know is that Antarctica was once a lush and dense forest, with a population to match long before it became the wasteland it's most notably known as today. Evidence of this can be found when looking at a team of archaeologists and researchers that led an expedition in Antarctica in November of 2016 that lasted for several months ending in January 2017. The team found incredible evidence of lush forests in the region after locating and identifying a large amount of fossil fragments. This was from ancient trees that dated as far back as 260 million years. It's a well-known fact that when a top-secret aircraft is being made, the general public don't usually find out about it straight away. In fact, it can take years for this type of information to reach the masses, and sometimes it's not because the military wanted to tell us, but because there was a leak or people had photographed said craft. One recent aircraft that's being talked about is that of the SR-72. The Lockheed Martin SR-72, also nicknamed the Son of Blackbird, is an American hypersonic aircraft currently under construction. It's the successor to the SR-71 Blackbird, a plane that was able to reach speeds of 3,529 km per hour, or 2,200 miles per hour, and heights of 85,000 feet. The SR-72 aircraft will be the most impressive aircraft on the planet, having state-of-the-art hypersonic technology. Some websites are even reporting that the SR-72 will be able to strike targets anywhere in less than an hour. However, not everyone is entirely convinced that this aircraft is in its early stages, with some residents across the United States coming forward with their testimonies and photographs to prove that this hypersonic aircraft is currently flying around in our sky. As mentioned earlier, it can take a few years for the public to find out certain information, and it's known that we have the capability to build these kinds of crafts, because back in the 1960s we had the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. There was nothing around at the time that could match it. Even today it holds the record as being the fastest aircraft ever created. Back in the 1960s, this incredible aircraft was able to reach speeds of 3,529 kilometers per hour, or 2,200 miles per hour. So knowing that we had this kind of tech back in the 60s, it's easy to see why people believe that the SR-72 is currently flying around in our sky. One person was driving through Wyoming a few years back when they said they saw a mysterious craft above them. They said that these objects looked like two giant black triangles, but said due to where they were positioned in the sky it was hard to get a decent photograph of them. However, they did manage to snap a photograph and you can clearly see that this aircraft is in the shape of a triangle. It's very rare for people to see these things during the daytime. The eyewitness said the following. On April 10, 2010, I was driving east on Interstate 1815 when I looked north and saw two black wide triangular shaped flying crafts. I could see their shape as the lights from my truck reflected off one of the bottom of the slow moving crafts. There was a light on each of the points of the triangle. One light was red, one was blue, and the third looked like a white or off-white. One craft was following the other, and they were flying low west along Interstate 80. They were flying slow enough that I was able to watch them for a while. End quote. Something to note is that as of right now no military has come forward to claim that they own these crafts, although sightings of them have been made for at least the last 50 years. These black triangles are somewhat of a mystery, with UFO believers saying that they're not the same as our crafts, while others have said that the latest line of stealth aircrafts. Others have suggested that these large black triangles are actually the SR-72, and those who've studied these hypersonic aircrafts have said this does add up. Various eyewitnesses who've seen these black triangles have said they've been seen leaving an area at extreme speeds, and it would make sense as we're just learning about these crafts now. And in the past, when we found out about new stealth aircrafts, they've already been in operation for a few decades. So these sightings of black triangles that people have been reporting for the last 20 years could be the SR-72 hypersonic aircraft. However, this isn't set in stone, and there's others who have said that we currently don't have anything that could match that of the mysterious black triangles. This begs the question then, what are these things? For over 40 years the Triangle Ufo has caused much debate. It's perhaps one of the most common shaped UFOs that's been seen. These crafts are often reported as being silent, and have been seen on a number of occasions just hovering in the sky. Sightings of the Triangle UFOs often come in waves, with people seeing dozens at a time. They are also perhaps the most photographed UFO as well, with even news programs covering them. What's most impressive about these crafts is that they've been witnessed hovering motionless in the sky, and then suddenly making a high-speed departure. Pilots have said they're faster than any conventional aircraft that's currently in the sky. The SR-72 program was mentioned by the Executive Vice President of Aeronautics at Lockheed Martin, and this was during an aerospace exhibition in Fort Worth. They said the following. Although I can't go into specifics, let's just say the Skunksworks team in California is doubling down on our commitment to speed. Hypersonics is like stealth. It's a disruptive technology, and will enable various platforms to operate at 2 to 3 times the speed of the Blackbird. Security classification guidance will only allow us to say the speed is greater than Mach 5. End quote. As mentioned though, a lot of people don't buy this, and say that the aircraft is already in the sky. In fact, according to one source, they stated that an unmanned subscale aircraft was observed flying into the US Air Force's Plant 42, which is the headquarters of Skunkworks. When those that saw and heard the aircraft asked Lockheed Martin on whether or not this was the SR-72, they declined to comment. Other people across the US have said they've seen stealth-looking aircrafts in the sky during the daytime, but note that they're too high and fast to photograph. As of right now, it's incredible to think we have an aircraft that's able to do these kinds of speeds. when the first fossils were discovered surrounding that of the megalodon shark, the finding more than took the world by storm, as many all across the planet wrestled with the idea of a prehistoric Earth at one time housing massive sharks the size of whales, and what that may have meant for the diverse ancient marine life that existed alongside the now extinct creature during the height of its reign. The size of the megalodon is often disputed among researchers, but data suggests that this shark grew to lengths of up to 60 feet or 18.2 meters in length, while some researchers suggest that it could have reached a maximum length of 80 feet or 24.3 meters. One thing scientists have agreed on though is that this giant shark is extinct, though many would remark that the size of the megalodon made it an incredible predator that helped to allow the creature to dominate the oceans during its reign. The truth is that the creature's large stature actually proved to be more of a hindrance in nature than an actual benefit. In order to support its massive body weight and muscle growth, the body of the megalodon had a tremendous metabolism that only caused the creature to require massive amounts of food and resources, constantly available in its environment in order to not starve to death. This calorie requirement would have forced the megalodon to eat more than 2,500 pounds of meat per day just to survive, making it next to impossible to not starve if the creature found itself in an area void of a large abundance of natural prey. Given the fact that the diet of this massive shark was made up of mostly whales, turtles and seals, the megalodon would have been forced to be in a constant state of hunting, just to meet its daily calorie requirements, even going as far as possibly eating its own young in times of stress, and engaging in risky behaviours just to locate a possible food source that would most likely deplete in a short matter of time. Given the fact that the megalodon often travelled over vast distances, this led to high probabilities of winding up in new areas that did not contain an adequate food source, and ultimately left the entire species incredibly vulnerable. These problems are only made worse when you take into consideration how an environment can easily be changed by season, which often meant that the megalodon would have been forced to travel greater distances, or be highly susceptible to starvation if any dramatic changes in climate occurred. Even with this explanation though, fishermen and others have claimed to have seen giant sharks that dwarf the size of the great white shark, causing some to question whether this giant shark really did go extinct, or whether a new large species of shark is out there roaming our oceans. Although this theory seems unlikely, 2019 saw the discovery of a new species of whale, specifically a newly found baleen whale, which was found in the Gulf of Mexico. Dubbed Rice's whale, this animal can reach a staggering 42 feet in length, residing in the Gulf for the entire duration of the year. So it just shows us that even a 42-foot long whale can go undiscovered in the modern day. Some of the most interesting reports though are those that are backed up with photographic evidence, and some have claimed they found images of a megalodon. This image is currently being shared around cryptid groups, asking whether or not it shows a megalodon. The image is usually shared with a caption saying that it was taken from a plane window, while other commenters have said it was taken from Google Earth. It's not known where the image was taken, but those who've seen the photograph have said it clearly shows a large animal, noting that the photograph was taken from high in the sky. One user said the following: "I know scientists are against the idea of there being a megalodon shark, but what if this is what we're seeing? Or what about if there's another shark species not yet known to science? I know people don't like this idea, but every year we discover many new species. Who's to say that there's not a large shark out there that hasn't yet been discovered?" End quote. Others though said the image isn't very clear, so it's hard to make out what it is, with some saying that it could be a whale. This however started an interesting discussion, with users sharing their stories they found online of people who claim to have encountered a megalodon shark. Back in 1981, an Australian researcher, David Steed, was writing his book Sharks and Rays of the Australian Seas, who'd often find himself listening to the stories of local fishermen all throughout the area, of whom would tell interesting tales and point to the natural habitats of strange sea-dwelling creatures. One such story, however, included an encounter with a terrifyingly large shark. According to the fishermen, they all claimed to have seen a shark that they described as being more than 100 feet in length, with a head that was as large as the roof of the wharf shed located at Nelson's Bay. The fishermen claimed that as they was in deep waters, laying a number of crayfish pods, the massive shark had surfaced only for a brief moment, to show its size and carried away the pots in its mouth, despite the pots being more than 3 feet in diameter. Not only did this terrify the fishermen, but it led them refusing to visit their prime fishing location for several days, as they were terrified that the shark would return and swallow their boat. Though many refused to believe their story, the fishermen still stuck to their tale, and warned many others of whom attempted to search for the monster to merely leave it. Another story told of fishermen who refused to enter the area when they saw a huge shark take out one of their nets. This giant shark also destroyed all of their gear and nearly sunk their boat. The reports came from lifelong fishermen veterans, and not from amateurs unaware of the ocean life around them, more than familiar with whales and already known species of sharks to have prevented them from being frightened. Despite this experience, they claim that the shark they saw was far larger than any other shark they've witnessed. According to the gathered information from the researcher, the shark in question was believed to be at least 50 feet in length, and was grey in colour. As of right now, scientists stick to the fact that the megalodon shark is extinct, and say that these sightings could be explained as the fishermen seeing large sharks during the nighttime, giving off the illusion of them being bigger than what they actually are. With over 85% of the ocean remaining unexplored though, some have said we should have an open mind. So what do you make of these interesting stories? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below, and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.